Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. As I said a minute ago, hopefully this was a little bit of an excuse for everyone to have a bit of a delayed morning after the football yesterday. But again, yeah, thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to be doing another webinar with Segen. As George said, any questions as we go through, please use the Q&A box as we progress through the webinar, and then we'll come to them at the end. So yeah, my name's James Lydon, or Jimmy. I'm our Strategic Partnerships Manager at Sunsynk in the UK, which means I will look after the likes of Segen, the big energy companies that we deal with, and I also do a lot of the training within the business. Okay, so a little bit about Sunsynk. So the group has been established for more than 30 years. A lot of people think because we've only been in the UK for about 4 or 5 years that we're a new business. We're not. We're well established. We've always been the market leader in South Africa. That's always been the biggest market for us as a business. Um, World leaders in inverters and battery storage. So Keith, the founder of the business, way back when, it was himself and a professor from a university that invented the technology behind a bidirectional inverter, which we now know as a hybrid inverter. So that sort of gives us that tick on being world leaders and on innovation and new technology. I'm currently in our 30,000 square foot facility in Widnes, where we've got the sales team and our tech support, and also where we keep our UK logistics. Round the corner, we've got another two offices. One of them is our global R&D center. So we've got all the intelligent people in there thinking things up and working with prototypes. And then we've also got our global marketing office in Widnes as well. Um, apart from where we are now in the UK, which is the group head office, so we're a UK company. We've also got offices in South Africa, Hong Kong, Australia, Spain, America, UAE, Poland, Germany, and the Netherlands. So as a group, we've got a very large footprint, over 970 gigawatt of power installed globally. That figure is a lot higher than that now. Internationally recognized brand, and probably one of the most important things for installers is UK-based tech support. So we've got, all our tech support guys are based in the building here. We've got a great tech support team. As with most other brands, if there's an issue, we can remotely access the system if it's online. Most issues we can fix remotely. If not, we've got our service center here, so we can react quite quickly and get things sorted. Okay, so some of the key features of all of our inverters. So, whether it's a standalone inverter, a stackable inverter, any of our hybrid inverters, these sort of USPs are the same across the board. So the first one's quite basic. There's a Wi-Fi logger included in the box with every inverter. We also manufacture a LAN logger and a GSM logger. So, depending on the installation, where it is, if it's remote, there's no connectivity, we've got the GSM logger. Or if someone does decide, they want it hardwired, we do have that LAN logger available also. All of our inverters are IP65, so no issues with them being installed outdoors. That's the same with the majority of our batteries. All of our inverters have a built-in UPS output, so anything directly connected to the inverter will remain powered in the event of a power cut. So some people might decide to offer a customer, maybe just a double socket, or you can split the board. You can have your essentials board and your non-essentials board. So yeah, anything directly connected to that circuit on the load output on the inverter will remain powered. We are finalizing a Sunsynk gateway, so that is work in progress. It's the question we get asked the most. So yeah, that is work in progress, and we hope to see that in the next 3 to 6 months. Rapid battery charging. So the rate at which you can charge the connected batteries with our inverters is always the rated value of the inverter. So if someone's got a 5 kilowatt hybrid inverter and a 5 kilowatt hour battery, you can charge that battery at 5 kilowatt. Whereas, there's some others on the market where if you've got the same setup, you might be restricted to only charge the battery at 3 kilowatt, let's say. Ours will work at 1C and the inverters will always output the rated value of the inverter. All of our inverters are compatible with wind turbines as well. So not a lot of people know that there's a big market for wind um, if the wind turbine is decent. There's a lot of not decent wind turbines on the market, and the amount of times we get asked from people, end users who've seen a wind turbine on Alibaba that connects to the side of the drain pipe on the house, can it connect to our inverters? A lot of the time with the small ones like that, the answer is no, because the input voltages that our inverter needs to be the same as what the MPPT wants on the inverter. So typically between 120 volts and 450 volts. And with wind turbines, there's an awful lot that goes on before it gets to us. So typically most wind turbines produce three-phase AC, so they output three-phase AC. It's really noisy three-phase AC, so that needs to go through a rectifier. So that rectifier is a separate box to us as well, and that rectifier is going to flip it from that noisy three-phase AC to DC, and then the DC then connects into the MPPTs on our inverters. And what gives us the USP on the wind is built into the software on the inverters. We have what's called a 12-point power curve. So if you imagine the PMG, the permanent magnet generator on a wind turbine, it works similar to a bicycle gear mechanism. So if you're in first gear, it'll spin really freely when there's not much wind. But as the wind speed picks up, the turbine will spin faster, and as it spins faster, the voltage that the permanent magnet generator outputs increases. So we've got 12 different points that can be set on the inverter to say, okay, at this voltage, request this much current. And then at this voltage, request this much current. So we do that in 12 different stages. And obviously, as we request more current, that puts more of a load on the turbine, which then in turn generates more power. So yeah, that was a long-winded way of me saying that our inverters work with wind turbines. So we would always recommend to reach out to the team at Sunsynk if you are looking to do an installation with a wind turbine. We can sort of dot the I's and cross the T's with you, look at the output parameters of the turbine and make sure it's going to be suitable. So if if your inverter has two MPPTs, you can have both as solar, both as wind, one as solar, one as wind. You can mix it up. All of our inverters will work completely off grid. So we do not need a grid supply in our inverters. So if you've got a customer who's got, they've just built a big garden office at the bottom of the garden, they don't want to dig the garden up to get any AC cabling to the unit. As long as you've got solar panels and a battery connected to our inverter, it will work completely off grid. So the off-grid market for us is massive. There's, a lot of people do it, more so in South Africa, but we are seeing it more and more in the UK. And then with that off-grid functionality, unless it is a garden office where people might not be overly bothered about redundancy power, a lot of people will always have a backup generator. So you've got seasonality, different loads. So we've got a direct input on our hybrid inverters for a backup generator. With the backup generator connected, you can set on the inverter, you can say, right, once the battery gets to 30% SOC, our inverter can send the signal to the Jenny if the generator supports it with the ATS. So our inverter can send the signal to the generator to turn on, generator kicks in, and then when the generator power comes into our inverter, it essentially splits two ways. It'll go one way to power the load and the other way to charge the battery at the same time. So, if someone has previously been off grid and they've been, running off a backup generator, that gen is on all the time they need power. But with us, it might only be on 25% of the time because, like I say, while it is on, it's powering the load and charging the batteries. One sort of thing we always recommend with backup generators is to always size it a minimum of 150% larger than the size of the inverter. So if you've got a 10 kilowatt hybrid inverter with a max potential load of, let's say, 9 kilowatt, what we don't want you to do is install a 10 kVA Jenny, because when that Jenny is running, if the load is 9 kilowatt, we've got no headroom whatsoever to charge the batteries. So it's pointless, really, the Jenny being connected into us. So we would say, a minimum of a 15 kVA, even a 20 kVA Jenny. So when that 9 kilowatt load is being satisfied from the Jenny, we've also got the headroom there to be able to charge the batteries at the same time. Auxiliary output built in. So this works similar to your eddies and your iBoosts. The eddies and iBoost will typically start diverting at about 200 watts. Ours is slightly different. So on the inverter screen, you would program how much power the source wants. So if you've got that auxiliary load connected to an immersion, you would say on the inverter, the immersion wants 3 kilowatt. So it's a sunny day, your battery's full. If the system starts exporting 1.5 kilowatt, we will take the other 1.5 kilowatt from the battery to then give the load the full 3 kilowatt that it wants. And that output is turned on, which it can be set by the installer or the user, but it all works around the battery SOC. So typically someone might say, right, when the battery's at 100%, let's turn that on, but let's turn it off when the battery's at 95%. So similar, the fundamentals are similar to your eddies and your iBoosts. Like I say, they will start diverting at like 200 watts, and the immersion will take that. But for efficiency, the immersion wants what it wants. It wants 3 kilowatt. So that's why we give it the full requested power. All of our inverters can be AC coupled. So whether it's a 3.6 kilowatt hybrid inverter, 50 kilowatt three-phase hybrid inverter, if you've got a customer who's got an existing PV system on their roof, whether it's on the feed-in tariff, whether it's on a commercial building, and they're looking at their data and they say, right, we're exporting quite a lot of power here to the grid, you can simply install any of our hybrid inverters with the required amount of battery storage, and our smart CT clamp will see when anything else on that MPAN is exporting. So as soon as we see that export going via our CT, the CT will then instruct our inverter to charge the batteries at the same power. And then obviously, once the house load increases and the current string inverters can't satisfy the load, the batteries will then discharge to supplement it. Off-peak charging compatible as standard. So you've got, as standard in the inverter, you've got 6 different time periods where you can set when you want to charge the batteries from the grid or discharge the batteries to the grid, depending if there's a session with one of the energy providers. And we've got obviously full compliance, so G98, G99, and G100 V2 on all of our inverters. Okay, we're going to start with our new Accure range. I know some of these are in stock now at Segen. There's a lot more due to them imminently. So the Accure, the topology of the Accure is really similar to the standard Eco kit and the classic kit. We've just given it a little bit of a facelift. It's available in black and white. You can probably see on the image there, we've got the illuminated LED on the front of the unit. That can be set to different things, so it can show the battery SOC, what the maximum load is, if there's any faults, or it can simply be turned off. So it is quite customizable. There's a hinged terminal door on it. So, with the current inverters, the Ecos and the Classics, the installer has to remove the panel, whereas with this, it's a hinged door, so it is easier to access. And with the lip at the bottom of the inverter, you don't see the glands underneath it, so it does look a much sleeker install. Okay, on the Accure, we've got the brand new UI. So it's still a full touchscreen display on the Accure. On the standard Ecos and the Classics, if you guys have installed them previously, it was a touchscreen display, but when you were changing a parameter, up or down, you would use the keys below the screen, whereas now we've added the sliders on it. So it is much more of a clearer display. And you can see the picture on the right. We've got, this is a 2 MPPT inverter, so it's showing us what both strings are generating, adds them up to give the total. It'll show the battery, the auxiliary load, which is your diverter. It will show what the backup load is using. So if someone has connected a backup load, it will show what that is. And you've also got what the main property load is as well. Okay, so the key features of the Accure. So the same as the Eco range, sleek design, 100% PV oversizing on the Acure range. As we progress now into the range, the majority of our inverters do have 100% PV oversizing. Um, we've also got the increased max input current on the strings also, just for today's larger panels. As I said, available in black and white with matching batteries. The Cure has got integrated Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and LAN connectivity as standard. So with the previous range, you had the separate Wi-Fi logger that would connect underneath the inverter. The Cure has these built in. IP65, wireless CT compatible. So if you've got a job where someone's got a large garage with a subboard in, they want their inverters and the batteries in the garage, but again, getting that CT back to the incoming supply can be quite tricky. So these will work with our wireless CTs. So not every job's going to need them, but it's a great feature to have. Our wireless CTs currently only work with the Acure range, but we've worked really closely with a company called Owen Brothers. So Owen Brothers are a large metering manufacturer. They've been established for years. They're quite local to us. So if you've got any of our other kit, so whether it's the Eco range, the three-phase high voltage kit, anything, and you do need a wireless CT solution, they've put that solution together. So if you Google Owen Brothers Sunsynk, you will see the kit that they've done. And like I say, we've endorsed that, we've fully tested it, and it does work really well. And the good thing with Owen Brothers is they will fully support that as well. So if you're on site and there's any issues, obviously if it's a Sunsynk issue, you can speak to us. If it's a connectivity issue with the LoRa or with any of the wireless connectivity, they will support. The integrated LED bar that I've covered and the latest touchscreen display, and they Acure have built-in arc fault detection. Okay, the current range that we have in stock, we've got the 3.6, 5, and 7 kilowatt single phase. So as I mentioned, they've all got 100% PV oversizing, as you can see on the table below. And then you've got your max battery charge and discharge current. So as I mentioned, when you work it out 90 amps at, typically 50 volts, it's always going to give you the max charge and discharge at the rated value of the inverter. MPPTs and strings. So the 3.6 kilowatt and the 5 kilowatt Cure both have two trackers. So there's two MPPTs, each with one string into each. So two strings in total. And then you've got the 7 kilowatt. So the 7 kilowatt is in the slightly larger chassis. So you can see on the images there, the white one, that's the 7 kilowatt size. That has two trackers, each with two strings into each tracker. And I know I don't need to teach people how to suck eggs, but really important, if you've got an MPPT with two strings, make sure both of those strings are on the same orientation and are completely balanced. Otherwise, it won't be happy. Accessories, so the wireless CT. So you can see this is what's going to go at your incomer. So it comes with the CTs needed to go around, whether it's single phase or three phase. LoRa protocol, up to 200 meters. It's fully IP65, and the unit will work with both single phase and three phase supplies. And then the Smart Link. So this is a new product. We are due to receive the first batch of the Smart Links in the next sort of 6 to 8 weeks. This is essentially like a wireless diverter socket. So, this can be wired in, connected to any source. So similar to the immersion diverter, but this could be connected to a hot tub or anything, so that you can set on the inverter. Okay, we're exporting power. We want to divert it to this hot tub, and the system will automatically do that. It will turn the Smart Link on, and it will give it the power that it needs. Okay, then next is our Elite stackable unit. So these are in stock now. So, as a manufacturer, we're quite behind the market, I'm not afraid to say, on a stackable solution, but we've done it right. We've spent a lot of time on the Elite in testing, in the development. And one of the positives with it is the internals of the Elite it's the same as the current range. So, bulletproof. We've got all the same features, on grid, off grid, wind turbine imports, AC coupled, and yeah, it's we're excited to have it. We know the market has been asking us to bring out a stackable solution. So you can see in the image here, we've got our inverter on the top. Just underneath the inverter, you've got what we call the power distribution unit, and that is essentially the isolation in between the batteries and the inverter. So that has a 250 amp DC MCB built in. And then below that, we've got four batteries. We've got four 5.12 kilowatt hour batteries. So on that image, you've got, 20.48 kilowatt hours of storage. You can go up to six in the stack, so 30.72 kilowatt hours. So obviously it's going to be a tall stack, but the footprint of it is really small. It comes with everything you need to fasten it back to the wall to keep it safe. The image here, the base at the bottom. So essentially when you're ordering the Elite, there's three SKUs. So there's the inverter size, required, the power distribution unit, which comes with the base at the bottom, the grey base, and then however many batteries you need. We also provide adjustable feet for the unit, so they don't need to be used if it's a flat surface, if it's level. But if the installation location is slightly wonky and you need to use the feet, they can be used, and like I say, they can be adjusted either side. The batteries have got integrated heat pads as standard, which is great for those cold snaps we get in winter. The same 100% PV oversizing. It says gunmetal grey here. I think it's a little bit lighter than gunmetal grey. We've got some videos on our Sunsynk YouTube channel. So if you just Google Sunsynk Elite, you can see some more in-depth videos on there from, our tech team are talking through it and, the capabilities. Again, IP65 for outdoor installation and the same built-in arc fault detection. So the size is currently same as the Cure, 3.6, 5, and 7 kilowatt single phase. We will look to bring these out in three phase. We do have the kit in different territories. Our priority in the UK was to bring out the single phase one, which is the largest market for it. So yeah, that is work in progress. Our standard low voltage hybrid inverters, so single phase, we do a 10, 12, and still the largest single phase hybrid inverter in the world, a 16 kilowatt single phase. Some people get this passed by the DNOs. Don't know how, but they do. But with the likes of the 16, that's really popular in the off-grid market. Obviously, if someone's off-grid, the max power they can get out of the inverter, dependent on the PV and the batteries, is the rated value of the inverter. So yeah, the 16 is really popular. And as you can see at the bottom, the larger the range is as we progress, there's more trackers with more strings. So the 10, 12, and 16 have all got three trackers with two strings in each, so six strings in total. Low voltage three-phase hybrid inverters. And when we're talking about low voltage here, guys, that's just referring to the batteries that they will work with. So they will work with our low voltage batteries because we've got the high voltage range, which I'll come to shortly. So three-phase, we do an 8, 10, and a 12 kilowatt. And I'll just go back to that. So with all of our hybrid inverters, whether it's the Cure, the Elite, the standard range, typically you can parallel all of them 10 times. So, if someone's got a massive, off-grid single phase requirement, you can parallel 10, 16 kilowatts together. You can parallel 10, 12 kilowatt three phase together. So it just gives you an idea of how scalable the kit is. Accessories. So we've got our battery bus bar. So on the modular kit, the separate items, we say, if you're connecting more than two batteries, so, three or more, we always recommend using our battery bus bar. If you've got a job where there's 10 batteries, you would probably need two bus bars, and that's just, two batteries. You've got your main sort of battery to inverter leads into the main battery, and then you would use the parallel leads into the next one. But if you've got a job where there's a lot of batteries, if you imagine there's six batteries, you've got the inverter connected to the main battery, then the rest are all daisy chained. Those batteries are going to go out of balance quite quickly. So with the bus bar, if you've got those six batteries, they are all going to connect on typically 25 mil square into the bus bar. And then from the bus bar, dependent on the size of the inverter, um, you know, if it's a 12 kilowatt hybrid inverter, let's say you might have 50 mil or up to 75 mil square. But that means that all the batteries are eating off the same plate. We're not going into the first one and it's then trickling down. All that power is coming down into the batteries. Um, we do we do stock e-strom meters as well. So if you've got a job where the CT is quite far away from the inverter, the standard CTs that ship with the inverter can be extended up to about 15 meters. Anything longer than that, we always recommend using the e-strom meter. Um, that's going to give us a clear signal. It's going to get rid of any potential noise. So yeah, we do stock them. Okay, our low voltage batteries. So the W series batteries. So these are available in two sizes. So a 5.32 kilowatt hour and a 10.64. Um, so the cells within the W series batteries will charge down to -10 and discharge down to -20. So there is still a level of duration, the colder it gets, but they will still charge and discharge. Life PL4 are standard, so lithium iron phosphates are really safe, and they all have a 90% depth of discharge. You can connect up to 32 of the W series batteries together. So, you can have 32 W10s connected together, giving you way over 320 kilowatt hours of storage. So that is going to be a big system. There's going to be multiple inverters in parallel. You've got all your batteries, but it is possible. And then built into the battery as a standard, you've got the advanced BMS. So that BMS, the battery management software, is continually, monitoring all the individual cell temperatures, the voltages, and if it does see anything out of the ordinary, it will completely shut that battery down. So it's really safe. Our high voltage range. So these are our sort of three-phase commercial range. So again, high voltage. These will work with our high voltage batteries. So these won't work with the batteries that we've just covered. So starting off, we do a 20 and a 25 kilowatt. Again, you can parallel these 10 times. And then, as you can see here, we've got a number of MPPTs, so two trackers, each with two strings. And then you'll see the number of battery inputs on it. So the next slide, you'll see the 30 and the 50 kilowatt HV hybrid. They've got two high voltage battery inputs on it. The 20 and the 25 has one, but you can have more than one stack of high voltage batteries connected into the 20 and the 25. There's just a different way of doing it using bus bars, but it can be done. So yeah, the 30 and the 50. As I said, these have both got two HV battery inputs on. The batteries, which I'm going to come to on the next slide, each stack is, up to 61.4 kilowatt hours per cabinet. And you can actually have 16 cabinets connected to one inverter. So if you imagine you can parallel 10 50 kilowatt hybrid inverters, and each of those paralleled inverters can have 16 batteries, it's the possibilities are pretty endless on it. It's massively scalable. Okay, so the HV batteries, so you can see here, these two stacks. So each module in there is a 5.12 kilowatt hour low voltage battery. But typically with the low voltage batteries, if you were connecting multiple together, you would connect them in parallel. These are all connected in series. So once it gets to the top, we're at sort of 600 volts plus. So yeah, each stack is 61.4 kilowatt hours of storage. It says at the top here, max two battery sets per inverter. The software's been changed now, so we can allow, as I've just mentioned, up to 16. Same lithium iron phosphate, so really safe. All the HV batteries have fire suppression built in all the individual modules. And yeah, it's like I say, the batteries, there's The minimum amount you need connected to each inverter is four. So this cabinet has 12 in, so the full 61.4, but the minimum is four, so just over 20 kilowatt hours of battery storage. The power hub, so this is obviously it's an outdoor unit, and this essentially has got the high voltage kit built in it as standard. So inside the power hub, you've got a 50 kilowatt hybrid inverter and two of our 61.4 kilowatt hour stack. So just over 120 kilowatt hours of storage. And the power hubs are great because they're all pre-wired. You don't need to do anything. They get delivered to site, you terminate your grid feed into it. If it's been AC coupled, you know, you're not having to mess around with, a lot of wiring, essentially. We just need that grid feed and RCT on the incomer. But these are fully DC coupled and AC coupled. So, the 50 kilowatt, you can have up to eight strings in it. So if you want to put your PV into this, you can do. But yeah, the power hubs have been really popular, especially with companies where, as I mentioned earlier, they want to AC couple an existing system. So if you've got a building that's got 800 kilowatt of PV on the roof, but they've looked at the export data and, you know, some afternoons or weekends, they're exporting all this power. Instead of doing that and not getting paid anything or very little for it, that can then be diverted into this. Our meters, so you can see here we've got the E-Strom meters. So this is showing you the three-phase one. Uh, Obviously, it comes with the CTs required, and then it connects into the inverter on an RJ45. Internal wiring. So this is just showing you a little overview of the inside of the 50 kilowatt hybrid inverter. So there's plenty of wiring space in there. And you can see there's three different lots of connections. We've got our load and UPS connections. So if someone doesn't have that UPS load wired in, these are going to be redundant. But if you do have that critical load connected, they will be connected to these ports. Top right, you've got your generator connections. So that's what your backup generator would be connected to. And then you've got your grid connections just underneath. And then previously we were talking about with the USPs. So we've got the backup generator connection, we've got the diverter output, and we also have an AC coupled input. So if someone wants to AC couple it by connecting the existing strings straight into our inverter, they can do that. But those three functions all use the same port. They use the generator port. So you can only do one of these three things at once. So either a backup generator, the diverter, or the AC coupled input. But what you can do if someone is completely off grid and they need a backup generator connection, but they also want to have the diverter connected, we can move the generator grid side. So you can connect your Jenny to the grid terminals, and that then frees up the generator port to allow us to, use that as the diverter. The only thing the installer would need to do if using the grid connection for the generator supply is there's a tick box on the inverter to say that the Jenny is connected to the grid. Those grid terminals are typically looking for between 47.5 and 51.5 hertz. The Jenny's going to go way outside that. So when you tick that the generator is connected to the grid, the inverter is just going to widen those tolerances to let the system synchronize with it. So the standard CT, so if you use the CTs that are supplied with the inverter on the image on the left, you can see we've got the push fit connections there. They will be connected there. And then if you are using the E-Strom meter on the image on the left as well, you can just see the meter port there. So that will be connected into there on an RJ45. You can also see we've got parallel 1 and parallel 2. So if someone is paralleling multiple inverters, obviously you've got the first one, which is going to be then connected to the second from that, out to in. And then the second one, if there's a third, is going to go in to out. So yeah, really easy to parallel. Sunsynk Connect. So this is our monitoring platform. There's different ways of looking at the system. You've got the app. You can look at it on a desktop browser. And as installers, you would have your main installer account. And anyone that installs for you, you would instruct them to download their own Sunsynk Connect and create an account. And once they've done that, you can add them into your installer account as staff. So any Sunsynk system they install will then feed back into your dashboard, which is great for you because you've got full access to all the systems. You can remotely change any settings if you need to. If there's any faults, you can see it. Yeah. And one thing that works really well for us is built into the app for end users. We have 24/7 live chat support. It's with real people. It's not AI. It's not bots. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Your customers, the end users, can use this chat facility to speak to us. So it works great as a firewall in between the end user and yourselves. So if you've got a customer who's just changed tariff and they want to charge the batteries at a different time, or they've got a question about a graph, or they need the software updated on the inverter, they can reach out to us and we will do that for them remotely and answer any questions. This is showing you the plant overview. You can see we've got the power flow there, generation, load, grid, and battery. All the graphs. So there's lots of ways people can dial into it, see the data. Yeah, it's really comprehensive. And then there's three different accounts. So you've got the end user, advanced user, and installer. So when your installers build the plant for the end user, all the end user needs to do is just again download the Sunsynk Connect app, create an account, and then once they've created the account, the installer just shares the plant to that email address they've used. So then when they go back into the app, they will see everything. And when the installer shares the plant, they will be asked what permissions do they want to give the end user. So, just basic viewing essentially. So they can view all the data, they can see all the graphs, or the installer can set them as an advanced user where they can then go in if they want and change any settings. We leave that to you. Obviously, just be careful with that. It's a judgment call because it is easy for customers and users to go in and change settings and for it to go quite wrong. And then, 99.9% of the time we can remotely sort it. But with us having that chat facility, we always say, utilize the chat facility for end users. That's what it's for. We have three types of installers on our website. So once an installer has installed more than 3 Sunsynk systems, they will go on as a registered installer. 10 or more systems, you'll be an approved installer, and 50 or more systems, you will go on as a master installer. So the Sunsynk dashboard that I was just speaking about, that will show you the total number of plants that you've got installed. And I would say, the URL is on the slide here, but if you Google Sunsynk approved installers, if you are already installing Sunsynk kit and you're not on our website as an approved installer, I would urge you to go on there and register. It will ask you for proof of your installation. So again, a screenshot of that dashboard showing your plants, and we will then, create your account online. I think our marketing team will ask for like a company logo and address and what have you. But, customers do get a lot of work through the installer locator on our website. So yeah, definitely, if you've not already done it, yeah, get on that. And then last but not least, so this is really exciting. We've just launched this. We launched it at Solar and Storage Live in London. It's our new installer rewards program. So, we know as a manufacturer, the installers are the most important part of our business. And we want to reward installers for all the work that they do. We've tried to keep it as simple as possible. So, the headline figures on it is you would get £1 for every kilowatt hour of battery or inverter installed. So if you've got a customer who's got a 5 kilowatt hybrid inverter and 10 kilowatt hours of battery storage, that's £15 worth of rewards. So, when you sign up, when you first create your account, you'll get a tenner straight away just for validating your profile. As you do your installs, you upload the details requested on the install. But starting off, it'll be gift vouchers to use at loads of different retailers. And then we are finalizing being able to issue like a Sunsynk MasterCard that we can give you that you can use anywhere essentially. So, as I've just said, 15 quid for a 5 kilowatt hybrid and 10 kilowatt hours of battery storage. That's a pretty standard job. A lot of you will be doing those jobs on a daily basis, so this does add up. Unfortunately, you can't backdate installs. If you could, I probably wouldn't be sat here. Um, but yeah, I urge you again, if you're installing Sunsynk equipment, um, get on to the platform and get it registered. I'm gonna quickly ask my assistant who's not in view. Is it Sunsynk Rewards? Yeah. So if you go to sunsynckrewards.com, that will give you the registration details and give you a little bit more information on it. Okay, that's my half an hour presentation that George requested. That took 46 minutes. One last thing is, if you are installing our kit, you can see here we've got the Freshdesk logo. If you Google Sunsynk Freshdesk, uh, go onto our landing page, and this is what you would use typically to create support tickets, whether whatever the issue is. But on the Freshdesk, there's a knowledge base section on there, and we pretty much have a knowledge base document on every issue that you might have. So, our tech support team, if they keep getting asked the same questions, they will write a knowledge base document. So whether it's, wiring up a diverter off grid, connecting a wind turbine, it's all on there. So yeah, thank you. There's only one question at the moment. The
Yeah.
fanboys of
If we,
well,
this is your reminder, guys. If there are any questions, please do feel free to put them in the chat. Jimmy, thank you so much for that. That was incredible as always. How do you feel about this question? Do you want to go for it? How
yeah,
do you
yeah,
describe
fine.
how it?
So yeah, the question is, so the newer Cure 8 kilowatt single phase, the data sheet, the fan is under 30 decibels. So yeah, so with the Cure range, we still class it as the eco range. So, in other territories where we sell an 8 kilowatt hybrid inverter, they would be a bigger unit because they do have more cooling fans on them. Um, Whereas, in the UK, because it's rare that we get climates that we need to be concerned about the inverter's temperature, typically they're cooled by heat sinks. So we've got the internal fans which will push the heat, and that then gets dissipated through the heat sink. So yeah, the inverters are really quiet, which we know there's some on the market where they are quite noisy. The 3.6 and the 5 in the Elite and the Cure, there's no external fans on them whatsoever. So it's, internally there is, but you'd be hard pressed to hear them. Um, they're cooled on heat sinks. So yeah, nice and quiet. Um, yeah, unfortunately, I can't answer the which wholesalers are you in other than Segen while I'm presenting a Segen webinar.
Bet, that is a
Um,
very cheeky question to ask. You sat right here on a stage of webinar. I'm here right now. That's something you ask when I've left.
um, there's a question in the chat. One second. Yeah, so let's have a look. Okay, first question. When is the wireless CT available? The next batch, so yeah, we've sold out the wireless CTs. They will be arriving in about 3 weeks. We're air freighting a small quantity over, and then we've got a massive quantity on the way to us on the water now. So yeah, about 2 to 3 weeks. Um, Thanks for the question, Ryan. For the HV models that the batteries are connected in series, if one of them is experiencing a fault or has failed, will that entire system shut down? So that stack will shut down, Ryan. Yeah. So if there's one stack, that complete stack is going to shut down. Um, but the BMS on the top of the stack will tell you which battery it is. So if you've got 12 batteries in that stack, I feel like I'm on TV here looking at one laptop, but my camera's on the other one. So if you've got 12 batteries in that stack, and let's say battery 6 has a cell fault, that stack's going to shut down. The BMS is going to tell you that it's battery 6. So what you can do while the fault is being investigated, you can remove battery 6, remove battery 12, lift 12 into 6, and then that stack will work with 11 batteries, if that makes sense. How do we know if the wireless CT is in the box? They're not. Originally, way back when with the wireless CTs, we were going to include a wireless CT with every Accure inverter. But then, as a group and, sustainability, we looked at it and, you know, 9 out of 10 jobs don't need a wireless CT. So there would have been an awful lot of wastage. Obviously, there's a cost associated with that. So we've decided to, essentially we've lowered the price of the inverters, whereas originally when we were including them, there was a slight increase in that to cover the price of the wireless CT. So yeah, they will be sold separately, but yeah, very not expensive.
Just whilst people are still getting their questions in, something I should have mentioned at the start, that if you are going to Intersolar next week, you can find both Segen and Sunsynk there. If you want to come and speak to the Segen team, we're going to be at stand 120 in Hall A4. And then Sunsynk, Anna, feel free to fact check me, but I've got it here. You are in Hall B3 and stand 480. So if you are taking that pilgrimage, please do feel free to come and say hello to all of us. We would love to see you there. Um, if there aren't any more questions, we can call it time. I'm very hesitant because every time I say that, somebody types another question in. But I think we are clear, I think. So thank you guys so much for coming today. We really, really do appreciate you taking the time. We know how busy you are, and it really does mean a lot for us, for you to come. A big thank you to Jimmy and the Sunsynk team. Jimmy, that was fantastic, so insightful. I really enjoyed it. I'm sure everybody else did too. Um, will there be next week? Well, we'll be there next week. Oh, perfect. Chloe, we'll see you there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're as George said, we're at Intersolar, so there's a couple of the UK team going, so I'll be there myself. We definitely have beer on the stand, so if anyone wants to pop over, come and say hello.
What more do you need?
Yeah, sold.
Perfect. You'll get a follow-up email from you guys, but other than that, we will leave it there. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great rest
Thanks,
of the day.
everyone.
Cheers. Bye bye.